ride on time, short on rhyme. In picking up somewhat choppily from the previous paragraph, such a hands-on approach to recovery is far easier to mull over than set in motion, especially on those moody monochrome mornings when one's mind feels so weighed down by life's recurrent burdens that it can't even begin to think in the straight lines along which their legs would usually like to travel. And that's well before we've even considered the headstrong westerly gustbuster I endured throughout 45 unmonitored minutes in the perceived graveyard zone. A systematic elemental abuser combining turbulent force with Met-proof chill that caused St. Beaufort's pole-bound weather vanes to flap patriotic odes from the very same wind sheet, and ruffled the tousled leaves of trophy palm trees into lopsided manes on their supple trunks. Regrettably, every such tropical outcast I glimpsed was either so image-conscious or protective of their privacy rights that they point-blank refused to be photographed, though the pictured yucca plant provided a more accurate impression of its taller bedfellow than could any AI-generated composite rendered from a dataset filled with stock footage of Caribbean coastlines and 10,000 promotional stills for Grand Theft Auto 6. Bits and jobs. Bah! Data so utterly devoid of depth and structure that even a fledgling kingfisher wouldn't venture to dive off the low branch into it, for fear of striking its precious beak upon the so-solid metrics. Nonetheless, also an effective means by which to relieve pressure upon both my bunged-up mind and blocked sinuses, with abundant free-range oxygen and a generous dose of divinely administered vitamin D, proving every breath and ray as invigorating as any hot lemon-infused libation, medicinal throat pastils, or flavoured viscous liquid formulated to suppress any category of cough, from dry and tickly to chestier than Bob Fleming. One involuntary punch up and around the sharply contrasting gradients of Green Acres Crescent set my perceived pulse pounding, and made breathing soon take priority over inwardly muttered motivation. I've no doubt this spontaneous microsurge would have beat out in Zone 4 beneath the watchful censor of any wearable cardiologist, despite being partially impeded by an oncoming Toyota Prius, whose discreet electric motor emitted a faint wailing hum as its grateful driver slithered across my vacated path, using barely a fraction of his shiny hybrid chariot's total 164,000 watts, which it develops from the latter power source alongside a potent 2-litre petrol-driven engine. However, this efficient automotive synergy's impressively quiet mechanics still drowned out the game of Chinese whispers I overheard a flock of sparrows engaged in from the dense shelter of a nearby gorse bush. To have and to hove. And then, after at least 5 guttural caws to legs from Shoreham Beach's resident black-billed barbershop chorus had filled in for Dr. Garmin's tremulous get-up-and-go alerts, due again to the latter's prematurely discharged battery, there came another casually clothed and recuperative cruise along central Sussex's lengthiest coastal carriageway, which might facilitate cyclotherapy far more effectively if its permanently battle-scarred surfaces weren't always flanked by barriers and temporary traffic lights that the regulatory authorities deem compulsory to safely corner off excavations deep enough to swallow a Renault Clio whole, as opposed to a whole Renault Clio. And then, after several further unlogged shifts of freelance food ferrying for the famished and stranded citizens of my immediate vicinity, nothing if not solid and almost wholly seated for the duration of all outward, middle, and home-bound treks that formed this divided double encore of Wednesday's solitary seaside trundle, and at a sustainably strenuous rate of heartfelt extortion, which recorded metrics accordingly verified to tally with 70% of my aerobic capacity, for a slightly underwhelming 170 total guesstimated watts. Meanwhile, factual velocity averaged a few meters per second slower than that of the two Weimaraners I witnessed racing across Hove's sacred lawns in hot pursuit of a well-chewed rubber effigy of the Incredible Hulk. This high-octane action also happened to unfold far too swiftly for an iPhone 16e's narrow-angle lens to capture without uncontrollable motion blur, even with state-of-the-smart sensor shift technology utilizing its hyper-reactive intuitions to composite for a mortal photographer's shortfalls. Other arbitrary observations that might have made the Night Critters Gazette's rear gossip section during an exceptionally uneventful month included one intrepid senior citizen down Harbour Way attacking her heavily overgrown lawn with a hedge strimmer that was evidently cutting several gnarly weeds above its weight. Indeed, this bushwhacked gardening appliance's aging two-stroke motor sounded on the verge of spontaneous combustion as it rasped and spluttered in protest to every stout stalk that its blunted blades were swept across, at a cadence of well below 1,000 RPM. For a vivid sonic spectacle of this whirring cacophony, try to imagine Daffy Duck and Porky Pig angrily reciting the following tongue-twister. 7 snowy white swans swimming swiftly after a school of sleek silver salmon.